Hello, welcome back. I'm back with another book video today. I'm very excited for this one because I'm going to be talking about books that you need to read this summer. I've decided it's my favorite season to read because I don't have to worry about school. I can just like lay on the beach or like sit in my backyard with the sun and read a good book, and it's always the time of year when I read the most books. I read a ton of books last summer, and so I'm hoping I'll be able to do the same this summer, but I'm just going to share with you some books that I've already read that you need to read this summer, that just, they scream summer. They're perfect. They're just amazing books in general, so I really hope you read them. And then I'm also going to share with you a bit of my summer TBR, books that I haven't read yet but that I know have like super summery vibes, so I'm planning on reading those. There's just a few of those. Most of these will be books that I've already read, and a lot of these I actually want to reread this summer because some of them are just so perfect. So I will get into all of that. I also just wanted to address this. I don't have a tattoo. This looks like I have a tattoo. I'm planning on getting one really soon. Not this exact one. I'm trying out a few different things to see specifically what one I want to get. So this is just a temporary one. It'll just last a few weeks. I was just seeing like the placement and sizing of everything. The one I get will be probably pretty similar to this, but maybe in a different spot. Yeah, I didn't actually get a tattoo. When I go to get it, I will definitely be vlogging. I'm so excited to get it. It's just a really long wait because a lot of the tattoo shops or whatever they're called near me have a really long wait list. So it'll be a bit, but I'm getting one soon. I did not get it without telling you though, so just ignore that for now. But let's get into the books. I'm so excited to talk about these. So I'm gonna start with ones that I've already read that I just recommend. It's all these here. I turned them the opposite way so it doesn't spoil it for you guys. But I'm gonna start with a book that I actually don't have the physical copy of. It is actually a book series. It's the only series in this video. The rest are standalones. Well, sort of. For the most part. But this is a trilogy, and you've probably heard of it. It's the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. It's becoming like a mini series, I think, on Amazon Prime. I'm filming this June 7th and that comes out June 17th, so it's really soon, 10 days. But I definitely recommend reading the books before you watch the show. I haven't seen the show yet, but I just know the books are so good, so I definitely recommend reading them first. Basically, it's about this girl named Belly. She goes to this cottage like every summer with her mom, her mom's best friend, and then like her mom's best friend's two sons, as well as Belly's brother. But she goes to the cottage every summer. She kind of has a glow up over the school year before like this book takes place. So you get to see what it's like when she returns to the cottage after her glow up, and then like the two boys of like her mom's best friend, her two sons, are kind of like, oh, she's cute. They never noticed before. And so there's kind of like a little love triangle between Belly and then Jeremiah and Conrad throughout these three books. I don't want to go too into detail, but the vibes are just perfect for summer. Just such a cute, wholesome book. It's like a YA series. It's super popular for a good reason. It is 3 short books. I read, I think, all 3 in the span of a few days last summer. It's a really quick series to get through, so if you want to get 3 books under your belt this summer, I definitely recommend these. I highly recommend it. Now we will go on to the physical books that I have, starting with a 5-star read of mine. This was one of my like top 3 favorite books of last year. If you've seen my like 2021 reading wrap up, you may know what I'm talking about. That is Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. This or Reminders of Him are my favorite Colleen Hoover books, and I love all of Colleen Hoover's books, so that is really saying something. This is just like screams summer, and the romance in it is so good. But basically this is about a girl named Bea who goes to live with her dad after her mom passes away. She hasn't seen her dad in years, and she finds out he's wealthy and she has a stepsister, so she goes to live at this like fancy beach house for the summer, and she meets her stepsister and all of her sister's friends, including a boy named Samson. And this is kind of a romance between the two of them. They don't get along at first, then they become friends, so it's kind of like a friends to lovers, and it's just really good. There's a crazy plot twist at the end that I did not see coming. The setting is perfect for summer. They're like at a beach the entire time, and it's just really good. It's like an emotional ending, but it's so good. There's definitely, the thing about Colleen Hoover's books is like they can be like a cute fluffy romance, but there's also like so much depth to them, and there's so much that goes on in this book. So I don't want to say too much about any of these books because I don't want to like give the story away, but if you take one book for the summer, this book just screams summer to me. and I read it literally so fast. The next book I'm gonna recommend is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is also super good. Of course, all of these are if I'm recommending them, but this book is less of a romance compared to the rest. There's definitely romance in it, but it's more of like a subplot compared to the main plot. But this book is told in past and present perspective. In the present, you see Nina, who's kind of like the main girl in this book, but it follows her and her 3 other siblings. So there's 4 of them. They're kind of in the public eye. They come from a famous family, and they throw an annual party every year, kind of for all like the famous people in Malibu. This takes place in Malibu, hence why it's perfect for summer. But they host this annual party every year. So in the present, you kind of see hour by hour, I think starting from like 7 a.m. until like the end of the party. Throughout the book, you get to see everything that unfolds over the day and the night of this party. Tons of crazy stuff happens and it's super eventful. You get to see that, and then in the past you get to see their, like the 4 siblings, you get to see their parents kind of fall in love in their story and everything about that. One of the characters in this book is also, I've heard from the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I've not read that book yet. I really need to. I know I have it on my TBR, but one of the husbands from that book is in this book. So a little crossover, but I definitely recommend this book because it tackles so much more than just like a typical romance. There's so much that goes on in it, and it just will keep you entertained. I did not get bored for a second while reading this book. And we have another super popular iconic book, and that is Beatried by Emily Henry. The name shows that it's perfect for summer, although it's definitely more of like a lake vibe than like a beach vibe. This book is basically about January, who goes to her like family's lake house cottage after her dad passes away, and she's going to just kind of clean out the house, but also to try and find inspiration to write her next story because she's an author. I love reading about authors and just people who enjoy books in general. But she goes to stay at the beach house for a while to write her book, and she's having writer's block. She can't figure it out, and while she's there, she runs into Augustus, who was her like college rival. They are both authors and writers, so they kind of had like a rivalry competition when they were in school. She runs into him and they decide to swap genres and write each other's genres. So like she normally writes romance books, so he gives romance books a try, and I think he normally writes like just general fiction or like science fiction. I don't really remember, but she decides to give that a try. He takes her on these like weird adventures and interviews to gain inspiration for her book, and she takes him on like these cute little dates for inspiration for his romance book. So it's definitely like a rivals to lovers type book. There's just amazing quotes in this book. That's one thing about like Emily Henry's writing, I find, is she just has like such quotable lines in them. So I love this book. And while we're talking about Emily Henry, I thought I would mention her other book, People We Meet on Vacation. This book is also super good. This follows Poppy and Alex, who were like best friends all of college, and it's told in past present perspective. So in the past, you get to see all of their trips that they would take in college because they decided to go on like annual summer vacations together throughout college and early adulthood. So you get to see those vacations and just their kind of friendship form. But then in the present, you see them, I don't even remember how many years later, a lot of years later, you see them. They're no longer talking, they're no longer friends, and Poppy is just kind of in a rough spot, and she realizes last time she was happy was during her last annual trip with Alex. So she kind of tries to convince him to go on one last trip with her. She kind of tricks him into going in a way, but she tries to rekindle their friendship. You're also trying to figure out why they stopped being friends, why they stopped going on these trips, why they stopped talking. So it's kind of, all of the story is leading up to finding out why they're no longer friends. It's definitely like second chance romance, friends to lovers type book, but very good, very summer vibes. The next book I have, this is actually the most recent book I've read, and it is my favorite book that I've read this year, 5 stars. I actually love this book so much. It is Every Summer After. This book is so popular right now, and for such good reason. I love this book so much. I think this book was written for me, and I'll explain why, but basically this book reminds me of like Love in Other Words, which, by the way, recommend that book. I didn't put it on this list because it's not like pure summer vibes, but it's definitely, I read it last summer, so in my mind I associate it with summer. It's my like #1 favorite book, so I definitely recommend reading Love in Other Words too. But this book is definitely reminds me of like Love in Other Words / People We Meet on Vacation. Mix them together, you get this book. But again, it is past present perspective of Percy and Sam. Basically, Percy's parents decide to get like a summer house where they can go get away from the city and spend their summers in. And so I think she moves in when she's about 11 or 12, and she meets her next door neighbors, which are 2 boys, Sam and Charlie. And Sam is the same age as her, so she kind of forms like this friendship with him over the years. They grow super close and they just become like best friends. And then so that's the past perspective. You get to see all of those summers of them growing up together, growing super close. And then in the present, you see that they are no longer friends, but Percy gets a call that something has happened, and so she has to go back to like the small town that she used to stay in every summer. And of course she runs into Sam, see them reunite. But again, similar to People Who Meet on Vacation and Love in Other Words, that you're trying to find out the reason why they stopped being friends, why they stopped talking. And I was actually, this one threw me. I was not expecting what actually happened. So I always love when a book is unpredictable, and I found this one to be unpredictable. I just love Sam and Percy so much. They're some of my favorite book characters. And also, I think this might just be a reason why I love it so much, but this book takes place in Ontario, which I love because a lot of the books I read take place like in the States. And so I don't really know the places they're talking about. Of course, I know like the place where the cottage is, and then also back in Toronto where she lives during like the rest of the year. I know those places, I've been to those places, so I love being able to see that. And then also they just reference like the schools, like the universities in our area, like Queen's and U of T, so it's just like relatable to me because of all of that. And then also Sam, his family is from Poland, which my family is from Poland, so it's like a Polish family living in Ontario, and it's just super relatable. I swear this book was made for me. And then just that, and the second chance romance, friends to lovers, my favorite tropes. So this book, actually, you need to read right now. Go read this right now. This and Love in Other Words, top 2 books ever. Perfect for summer. Summer vibes are immaculate. And then the last book that I'm going to recommend before I get into my TBR is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I love this book. This was also like a 5-star read for me. This book basically follows Piper, who is kind of like an influencer, like a very famous, popular influencer who kind of gets in a scandal. So her stepdad and her mom send her back to the small town where her mom and her dad, who has now passed away, where they met, and they just kind of send her off to this small town. And when she's there, she meets this guy, Brendan. They don't necessarily hit it off at first. It's definitely very grumpy sunshine. They form a friendship and then a relationship over time, but this book is just really good. I love both the characters and just the overall storyline. I don't want to say too much about this one because I don't want to give anything away, but this book I read so fast, and I actually read it in the winter, but I would definitely recommend it for summer because it is very summer vibes. You can tell by the name, It Happened One Summer. This book got me out of a reading slump, so I definitely recommend it. Go read it. And while we're on that note, the first book in my TBR for this summer is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This book is related to It Happened One Summer. In It Happened One Summer, Piper goes to visit this town, her sister Hannah. So that is who this book is about. It is about Hannah, as well as Brendan, who's the guy in It Happened One Summer, his best friend Fox. So you meet both of those characters in It Happened One Summer, and this is Tessa Bailey's newest book, and it follows Hannah and Fox. So I'm really excited to read this one. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it, so I'm not going to say too much. All I know is that it follows 2 characters from It Happened One Summer, and I absolutely loved It Happened One Summer, and I've heard some people say they like this one even more. So I'm really excited because I already loved that book, so I can't imagine liking this one more. But I'm really excited to read this one. I'll let you know how it goes in my like summer reading wrap up. Another book that I don't have the physical copy of yet, but I've seen a ton about it on like TikTok and everything, and that is The Summer of Broken Rules. I don't know who this is by, let me check. By K.L. Walter. But according to Google, it is a romance novel inspired by the songs of Taylor Swift. So, I mean, if that doesn't convince you, I don't know what will. That's all I needed to convince me to read this book. I don't know what that means. All I know is it makes me want to read it. But I've just heard a lot of good things about this book, so it's definitely on my TBR. The last book is Daisy Jones and the Six, another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I loved Malibu Rising. This book is also very summery, I've heard. I know it's about like a band. That's about all that I know. I've seen some of those like aesthetic, like Daisy Jones and the Six aesthetic TikTok videos, if you know what I mean. And that a lot of the times will convince me to read a book based on the aesthetic. So this is just another really good book. I'm surprised I have not read yet because it's been super popular for quite a while and I've seen it for so long and I've just never gotten around to it. This is definitely on my TBR. I really hope I read it this summer because I've been wanting to read it for forever. So those are all the books I'm gonna talk about in this video. There's so many more that I could say, but I already feel like I've been talking for forever, so I'm gonna cut it off here. Let me know any other summer book recommendations you have because I plan on reading a ton this summer. It's my favorite thing to do in the summer. So let me know any recommendations you have or if you've read any of these, what you think about them. I'd love to know. So thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.